Welcome back, y'all. This is the Bluechip Breakdown, and I'm your host, Bull. I'll be giving you my day after thoughts from Tennessee's 25-15 victory over the Oklahoma Sooners last night. Y'all, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. So first and foremost, big picture view of this entire team, right? We're 4-0, so Vol fans, y'all better be happy about that. It is something to be proud of. There's a lot of teams that cannot say the same, even in the SEC, maybe even especially in the SEC. It's a tough conference. It's not easy to win, but we've done it. And the first 4 games, we got those teams best. They've been game planning for us all off season, and that's just the way that the schedule is set up. It will not be the same moving forward. Teams won't have as much time to prep for us. So for us to be as dominant as we have been through the first 4 games of this season, again, you should be very, very proud of how far this team has come since Coach Heupel has come up on campus. And last night was really our best performance, in my opinion, especially like whenever you think about everything outside of the actual game itself. Coach Heupel, going back to Norman, you could tell that he was emotional about this game. It's a game that he wanted to win. And all nation, especially that team, wanted to win it for Coach Heupel. I saw that he was able to get the game ball from Nico last night. So that's really, really big. But then also, if you think about Venables, man, he's one of the best defensive coordinators maybe of all time. He could be top 10. I mean, his defenses have always been really, really good. So we're facing up against a team with a great game plan that was able to scheme up, for our offense the whole offseason, and we were still able to come out and get that victory. But it's not just that. Oklahoma's getting back several of their players that they've been missing for most of the season. And, I mean, we still won the game, right? And then I've heard a whole lot of the Sooner fans and, insiders and stuff talking to or not necessarily Sooner fans, but I'll say more Sooner insiders talking to the Sooner fans about getting that stadium loud. It was as loud as it's ever been. They broke a decibel record there. The grass, I think that it was new. We're slipping all over the place. I saw Oklahoma's players slipping some, but not nearly as much as we were. So that was kind of, working in Oklahoma's favor. And then the refs, I don't think that they called a very good game. I don't know how many penalties we had. It's like 7 or 8 for maybe like over 100 yards, whatever. Don't quote me on that. But, all the penalties, it was lopsided. Even still, with all of those factors, with everything at stake, we go on the road in the SEC and we win that ball game. And oh, by the way, we didn't even make the trip to Norman with our starting left tackle, Lance Hurd. And then John Campbell, our starting right tackle, goes down in that game. So we're playing with 2 backup tackles. How many teams can you think of in this entire country that can do that on the road, especially in the SEC, and win the way that we did? I think that we were still dominant. If you watch that entire game, it was never in question that Tennessee was going to lose that ball game. So that's what I'm talking about, man. I mean, there's just a whole lot to be proud of with this victory. And then we got very conservative in that second half with the play calling on offense and even on defense in some spurts. And just kind of speaking of that, just talking to some of you OU fans that could be watching, don't give up on Jackson Arnold. He's a really good quarterback. He's going to give you the best opportunity to win more games in this league because he can make those throws down the field on a more consistent basis. And he's a baller, right? I think Hawkins is really good too. And their numbers are going to look crazy different. But keep in mind that Jackson Arnold faced up against our starters at the, more start of that game. And we were playing a lot tighter coverage versus what Hawkins saw whenever he came in. I think that when he did come in, Tennessee was up like 16 or 19 points, and we're sitting back a whole lot playing 4th and 5th string guys. So his numbers will look better, and people will say, oh, man, he looks like he's that dude. But really, I think Jackson Arnold is that dude. And this is, listen, we know that Oklahoma's front is struggling, okay? Y'all are going to have to get better up front for sure. It's difficult to do anything on offense as far as calling plays, running the football, throwing the football, whatever, if you can't block. And, y'all's offensive line just has not been that good at blocking the entire season. And you're going up against one of, if not the best front 4, and front 7s in the entire country. You won't see one better than that all season. I can promise you that. You'll see some that might be kind of close, but as far as, from a depth perspective and all those types of things, it's just not going to be the same. So I think that Jackson Arnold could look a little bit better, and your entire offense could look better versus some different teams that are also highly rated in the SEC. So that's just my thoughts on it, right? Like, y'all can take that for whatever it's worth to you. But I would say the worst thing that you could do right now at this point is to have Jackson Arnold losing confidence. He needs to keep that confidence. The OC needs to keep his confidence because I like Oklahoma's fans. I think that y'all are very classy. We talked about that earlier in this week. But you have to kind of hang in there with your guys and just let things play out. Once the offensive line gets better, I think that the offense as a whole will continue to grow. But let's go on ahead and take a look, Vol fans, at our stats and I'm going to give you my grades for each position group on this team. All right, y'all, let's start off with Nico Iamaleava. Y'all can see that he went 13 of 21, which is good for almost 62% and 61.9. And he threw for 194 yards. That's good for about 9 yards per completion. He had 1 touchdown. As far as rushing numbers goes, it says that he had 8 carries, but I believe 3 of those would be sacks for 15 yards. Of course, they will be taking away some of the yardage from those sacks. But all in all, I feel like Nico did a really nice job of managing our game plan. He took care of his body on his runs. He's either, he's sliding, things like that, right? Which is huge. He's also on passes that weren't necessarily there. Like if everything's covered up, he's throwing the ball out of bounds. So that is huge just to see him growing from all of those perspectives. Also, he had some beautiful passes. That throw to Dante, I mean, he throws the ball over the middle. I mean, maybe as good as anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like he's really, really nice at that. He had a nice deep pass to Brew. I think that he looked good with the deep passes, with the intermediate, and also with the short for the most part, but he did miss on some, maybe at all 3 of those levels as well. So he's definitely not perfect, but I think that, again, he managed this game the way that he needed to for us to win, and he didn't force the football into harm's way, which is huge. That's pretty much all we needed for Nico to do. Now, he did have, I think, a couple of fumbles, but that really wasn't on him, and we'll talk about the offensive line here in just a second, but I mean, on some of those plays, he just had absolutely no time to get the football down the field or to even brace himself to protect that football. So I think that Nico, man, probably like a solid B. Now, one of the other questions that I have is something that we probably won't ever really know the answer to, but it's how much leeway and how much freedom does he have at the line of scrimmage to check in and out of plays. It was times when Oklahoma had a lighter box that we could have ran on and we ended up passing on. It was also times when Oklahoma had, a much heavier box that we could have thrown on that we ended up, passing on. So I think that we've got to that we ended up running on. So I think that we've got to have something in place for him to have some more freedom if he doesn't already have that freedom. And if he did have it, and if he's not checking out of some of that stuff, then that's on him. Now, what we normally do is a run pass option, which is going to be, hey, look, if things look like we can pass it, then, that's what we're going to do. If things look like we can run it, then that's what we'll do. But in this game, it just felt like we were a lot more conservative with that. And it seems like the plays were almost kind of like dictated, maybe from the sideline. So kind of confused on that. But all in all, y'all, I would give Nico a B. I think he had a very solid outing. He made sure that we could win this ball game. So next, we're going to talk about our offensive line before we get to the rushing. So we know that for most of the game, we had 2 new guys playing at tackle, or 2 guys that aren't true starters. We'll talk about them last. So starting off with our true starters that did play from the left side, we'll talk about Andre Carrick. I was very hard on him this whole offseason. I said, listen, there's no way that he's going to start or be any, real factor at left guard. I was wrong. I was dead wrong. He played phenomenal, and he's looked good the entire season. It doesn't matter what type of blocking he's doing. I think he looks beautiful pulling, but I mean, he is a bully. Really, everyone that did play, even the guys that were kind of backups that came in, you could tell that they were still playing with that edge, and you love that. I mean, man, look, the entire offense is going to go off of the offensive line. They've got to be bullies, and it's the same thing on the other side with the defense. Those guys have got to be bullies and wreak havoc, and then everything else kind of takes on the personality of both fronts. So I think that it's good that we are still doing that, even kind of getting into the depth pieces. But I think that Andre Carrick, man, he had a beautiful, beautiful game. Now, going on to center, Cooper Mays, he played really well. Also, seeing him doing the exact same thing, moving bodies, tossing bodies, and he's also pulling. All of our guys did a really nice job pulling. I think that just the technique and the fundamentals with that has grown so much, especially from week 1, but we've seen that progress week to week. So looking good there. I absolutely love Coop. He is a fearless leader, and I think that he's probably not really undervalued. He just isn't talked about enough because he plays on the offensive line. But talking about right guard, I think that Spraggs looked really good also. There was one play where I did see him kind of get beat with speed to the outside. That's kind of been a common theme for him really this entire year, and he's going to have to get better at that. But outside of that, looks really good. Looks really good pulling, looks really good getting down the field, being a bully, being a dog, being nasty. Love what I saw from him. John Campbell, while he was in, same exact thing. Okay, same exact thing. I think that those 4 guys looked good. Once we get Lance Hurd back, once we get the entire starting offensive line back, we are going to be a very, very serious problem. And if you look at our numbers as we're going through this, understand us doing it with the 2 backups in at tackle is huge. I know that we touched on it, but I cannot be overstated how important that is for the depth of this team moving forward and the, overall mindset. I feel like the coaching staff's going to get some more trust. The players will trust themselves more and their teammates more. So that's really big. But talking about the guys that did come in, starting off with Dane Davis, I think that he struggled, especially early on. He's getting beat with speed to the inside and to the outside. I thought that he would look better at right tackle than he did at left, but he actually probably looked a little bit better at left than he did playing at right. Either way, he wasn't great by any means, but he did have some nice little flashes here and there where, again, being that bully, pushing people around, I saw some of that. You can tell he's playing with really high effort. So that's always good. You never want to bash a guy for that. I don't think there's any real need or any real reason to bash him because I think that he played, maybe solid. You know what I'm saying? I think that, yeah, he played very, very solid. But now talking about Larry Johnson, I've been hard on him too. I was afraid of him coming in. I was terrified because he did not look good last weekend versus Kent State. But in this game, he actually looked pretty good, y'all. I was pretty impressed, whether it's in pass blocking, which wasn't perfect. Okay, I'm not going to say that it was perfect by any means, but it looked solid. There was several times where it was perfect. So he is making those strides. But as far as run blocking goes, it is going to be a drop off, of course, from Lance Hurd and his dominance. But he's still moving bodies, so he executed what he was supposed to do. Just not as dominant as, like a Lance Hurd would have been, because we might only ask for Lance to block one person, but he ends up taking out two. So that would be, what the difference is. Larry Johnson was taking out his guy consistently, and I saw him going up against different bodies. So I have a whole lot more confidence in what Larry Johnson can do, and hopefully he will have some more confidence in himself as well. So offensive line as a whole, if it was just about our true starters, I would say that it's an A, but since we have to factor in especially the play from Dane Davis, but really, the two backup tackles, I'm going to give it a B- just because there were several plays that ended up getting missed. And we know that the offense was very, very conservative just because Coach Hype didn't trust those guys as much to force the football down the field. And just real quick, y'all, we did kind of throw the ball down the field some, but it was on straight go routes. Typically, man, with this offense, we can run some routes down the field that take a little bit longer to get going, but you need a better offensive line. So once our starters do come back, expect to see a lot of what we saw in 2022, where some guys are running wide open down the field. And we saw that a few times in this game, but it's going to be even more so once our starters come back with how much we've grown with this offense. So we're going to give the offensive line a B-. Now let's go on to the rushing numbers. I think that DeSant, man, he came in, didn't have a whole lot of room to run early on. Again, that's back to the offensive line. It's also based off of the way that that Oklahoma was playing us. Again, it's exactly what UGA did. And what they do, man, with that 5-man box, you've got those safeties kind of, creeped up close. As soon as they see run, they're coming downhill really quickly. So it wasn't always just that our offensive line wasn't necessarily doing a good job of picking up the people that they were supposed to physically. It was more about Oklahoma had more bodies dedicated to the run than we had blockers. And a lot of those tackles that was made up by the line of scrimmage was by some guys coming from the outside that were really secondary players. But also, man, you have to give Oklahoma's front some credit for creating a little bit of a wall there just to kind of slow down our running backs, especially early on. So DeSant, man, he went, 24 carries for 92 yards, averaging about 3.8 yards per carry with one touchdown. He had a couple of really nice drives, and it really came after Bishop, was kind of getting up the field quicker than DeSant was earlier in that game. DeSant's used to having more room to kind of run initially, so he was a little bit too patient earlier in this game. But, man, I still think that he's a dog. He's still a top 3 running back. Nobody's going to be able to run on the types of looks that he was getting, for the most part. But yeah, I did notice that once Bishop came in, who went, he had 16 carries for 65 yards, 4.1 yards per carry. He came in and he was that spark plug, and he really got that running game going. But it's just good to see two backs that have that confidence, that can kind of feed off of one another's energy, and that can just find ways to continue to run downhill, get positive yardage, things like that. Now, just as far as the pass blocking, I think that for the most part, they looked pretty solid there. It was a couple of times that they kind of got pushed back on some blitzing linebackers and things like that. But I think that they looked pretty good when they went to the correct spot. The bigger issue was that they didn't always go to the correct spot. And on one of the plays that it looked like Dane Davis gave up, it looked like it was a blitz coming off of the edge. I think that DeSant was supposed to go to the outside and pick that blitzing linebacker up or safety, but instead he went to the inside. And I think that it was, I think that that's the main reason for the sack on that play. But as long as they know who to pick up, they're doing a pretty solid job. So I would say that all in all, man, I would give them about a solid B. You know what I mean? Just because, it can be dangerous if you don't know who to get on that blitz pickup. I don't know if that's on Nico to tell them who to get or if it's 100% on them. But I would say, especially with the one on DeSant, it looked like Nico expected for that blitz. It looked like he saw it and he expected for it to get picked up. So I think that he probably called it right and maybe DeSant just misjudged it. But again, who knows? I'm going to roll with the B. for our running backs. Also, man, I'm going to say this really, really quickly. I think that Cam Seldon, once he does get utilized, he is going to be another factor in this offense just because we know how good of a player he can be. He still only has 7 carries, I believe, this entire season. Y'all see he doesn't have any in this game. He came in for at least 1 snap, and on that play, he just kind of shoots out to the backfield. I think that we used him as more of like a decoy, and we threw the ball to the right side. I want to say to Squirrel White. Either way, I think that once we get all 3 of our running backs going, maybe get a 4th and hopefully a 5th that we really, really trust, then yeah, man, this team, again, man, we're going to have a whole lot of ways to beat defenses moving forward. Now, let's talk about how the wide receivers look. We'll talk about tight ends right here as well. As a matter of fact, we'll start off with the tight ends. We'll keep it inside of that box. So we see that Ethan Davis had 1 catch for 8 yards. Holden Staes had 2 catches for 8 yards, and Miles Kittelman didn't have any catches. So just as far as them going out, running their routes, making some good catches whenever we needed them to, I think that they did that. I know for sure that Holden Staes, both of his catches were for first downs. I think that it was off of the exact same play. So we look good there. We're winning our individual matchups. We are getting open. We are making those catches. And I think that just from a blocking perspective, we look really, really, really good. There was some times, man, with Miles Kittelman where he looked like an offensive lineman blocking, and he blocked several different bodies. I'm talking about secondary guys, linebackers, and also some actual front 4 players. But, I mean, his pass protection looked really nice. You could tell that Coach Abe is a former offensive line coach, so that was huge. Also on Nico's touchdown pass to Dante Thornton, Holden Staes, man, he comes across and he picks up a guy some in the middle, then he comes on to the outside. And I think that Nico thanked him for that. Like, he could tell, yeah, like, you picked that up. That was the block that really set that play all the way up for us to be able to score. So I think that they're doing a really, really nice job, from top to bottom. I'm going to give them a very, very solid A. It would be an A+, but it was a couple of times on some run blocking where their body wasn't in a 100% the best place. So it wasn't perfect, but it was very, very close to it. I'm proud of that room. They will also continue to be a weapon for us moving forward. Now, let's talk about the wide receivers. Brew had 4 catches for 92 yards, averaging 23 yards per catch. I love his physicality. I love the way that he's making extra plays. Actually, I think one of his longer catches might have gotten called back. But yeah, I mean, he is a dog. We already knew that. We got to get him into the end zone. But yeah, I'm proud of the way that he played. That one really deep pass that he caught, just very strong hands. I mean, from top to bottom. Also, just blocking. I mean, just everything that he does, I love. So Brew, he had a great game. The next player, man, Dante Thornton, he's showing up. He's showing up in a major way. He's another one, man. He had a very, very long pass that was called back. I forgot. I think it was for holding, or it was for something stupid. But either way, he's showing up in a very, very major way. He might be our best wide receiver at this point in the season. So, I mean, man, showing that toughness, that grittiness on one of his very long catches where he's, running through people and stuff, that's what you want to see from him, because that was one of my question marks is, will he be that dog that we need for him to be in SEC play? So far, he's showing it. He wants to go on to the league. And if he keeps on playing like that, he's going to make it. No questions asked. Squirrel White, 3 catches for 13 yards. Very, very light game for him. We got to try to get the football to him down the field a little bit more. And that's going to come, man. We just got to, a whole lot of what we've done so far, y'all, is just taking what the team has given us. That's fine, right? I mean, you can win games like that as long as you can do it. Really, however you win, that's perfectly fine. But I want to get to a point, kind of like what we saw in 2022, where we can dictate what the defense has to do a little bit more. And yeah, I mean, we still do that by spreading you out. But I want to be able to dictate a little bit more. Like, I want to get the looks that we want. I want us to be able to hand select, hey, Squirrel, today, you're going to get 5, 6, 7 targets. You might get 100-something yards. That's where I want for us to get to. And I think that that's coming. We might see that versus Arkansas. Outside of that, man, Chris Brazel only had 1 catch. That one went for 0 yards. Wasn't blocked very well. I didn't like that play call at the time. It was on one of those quick screens. But, I think that he had 2 touchdowns. It was one that was a back shoulder throw. I think we were maybe like on the 10 or something like that. Nico tries to give him that back shoulder option, and Chris just didn't get his body into the right spot. So he's got I don't know why, but it just looked like maybe he didn't understand what was going on in that play. But we know that he is a dog, and that back shoulder throw is going to be deadly to Chris Brazel as this season wears on. But he also had one that Nico just missed, where he maybe had like a step on one of Oklahoma's maybe cornerbacks, but it was a deep pass that Nico just missed a little bit to the outside. So he's getting closer and closer and closer, and I think that time is coming. But, all of our guys that did get an opportunity to play, from what I could see, were doing a really nice job outside of just going out making catches. helping out, blocking, all of that type of stuff. That is so, so critical. And I think that we did a nice job there. So all in all, I would give our wide receivers, I'm going to call it an A minus. Just a few more things that maybe we could have gotten cleaned up. Now, let's flip the page real quick to our defense. And I'm going to tell y'all this right here, right now. The defense as a whole, I'm not even going to go on an individual basis. A plus, absolute A plus. Opportunistic, and maybe not even opportunistic, but I think like we took the football away after turnovers. It might have happened twice in this game. That's the sign of a very, very dominant defense. They lived in Oklahoma's backfield, which we knew was coming. But the turnover thing in the critical situations, that's what was just like, wow. That's what I said. This is for sure a championship caliber defense. And I love to see it. So we'll start off, we'll just kind of go through some of these stats, okay? We'll talk about AC, man, right here at the top, leading us in tackles for that game. He had 6 tackles. He had 3 solo. He had 1 tackle for loss, and he had 1 pass breakup. I love what I saw from him. He's growing right before our very eyes. He looks so good. I mean, well, number one, you can tell that he's confident. I see him talking with everybody. Hey, yeah, look, it's this, it's that, and getting people set up. And he's playing with a lot more speed because he's not thinking. He's not like over processing, but he's where he needs to be. You know what I'm saying? Physically, right? Like he's getting to his correct spots. And just as far as his run fits, they look great. He's beating blocks with speed. He's beating it with strength, all of that good stuff. So yes, he's taking some strides even from last week. Very, very proud of him. And I'm excited for him next to the next man, Keenan Pili in SEC play. And Keenan Pili is an absolute and total dog. That it was one time where he hit Jackson Arnold, and you could tell he's like kind of giving him the daggone business down there. So I love to see that. And what did he have here? He had 5 tackles, 4 solo, 1 tackle for loss as well. He's everywhere that he needs to be, man. He's awesome. And, I think that he's definitely one of the best linebackers in the SEC. And I feel like I could say the exact same thing for Arion Carter. I mean, I'd say that they both have to be like top 8, but whenever you talk about Pili, he's got to be top 3. I haven't seen any linebackers playing the way that he's playing. We talked a whole lot about Stutzman, but if you look at the game that Stutzman had versus what Keenan Pili had, if you look at the way that they played from a speed perspective and all of that, obviously Keenan Pili, he won that battle just from the eye test and also based off of the stats. Now let's go on to Andre Turntine. He's doing a really good job of coming down and filling. Said so much about, will he be physical? I think he proved that to us earlier in this season, but he's also proven now that he will do it versus SEC competition. I love that. I love the way that he's playing. He's getting off blocks well. He doesn't have to use his strength. It doesn't really matter how you get off of a block. Just get off of it. I see him using that spin move, using his speed, using his quickness, and you can tell that he wants to make plays. I love that. Also, while we're just talking about safeties, let's talk some about Kobe Thomas. His hit on that sideline, dude, he is a dog. Like that hit, some of his hits really starting to look like Eric Berry. I'm not saying he's an Eric Berry, but his hits, man, like his physicality, it's up there, right? So I love what I've seen from him. I think that Will Brooks is doing a great job coming down, making tackles. We just look solid, man. I think that our back end answered a lot of questions in this game. Let's kind of flip it back to the rest of those linebackers because I think that JT played well. He's taking those strides. Also, we talked about him being a little bit better at beating blocks than Arion Carter was last weekend. But now, I think that they're about on that same level. And I mean, all of our guys look really, really good. Caleb Perry came in. I think that he looked pretty solid. Edwin Spillman, he's still figuring things out. He came in whenever Hawkins came in for Oklahoma, we had in both of those 2 players, and that's 4th and 5th. That's the 4th and 5th guys inside of our linebacking room. And that's a big part of the reason that there were some openings. And really, it was more so off of Edwin Spillman, who is just a true freshman, but he wasn't necessarily getting into his passing lanes the correct way. But either way, man, I think that our linebackers as a unit, they look really good. We've got a lot more bodies than we've had since Heupel has been up on campus, and it's not even close. Safeties look really good. I think that our star players, they played well. We did a whole lot of slipping around out there. Christian Harrison, who I think had some really nice plays coming up off of blocks, making tackles, really sound fundamental tackles. You can tell that he's got that dog to him, but we got to figure this stuff out. I think that we need to I'm sure that we probably do bring at least 2 pairs of cleats, if not 3, but we need to have some different types. And I don't know if we did switch at some point in this game, but if the playing surface is causing us to slip around too much, we got to be able to get that fixed quick. You know what I mean? Because that could have been a really big problem for this team. But let's talk about Tennessee's cornerbacks. Jermod McCoy. Okay, we told y'all he was a dog, right? And I mean, all the plays that he made in this game, this entire season, he's unreal. But seeing him shutting down Nick Anderson, who's number 4 for Oklahoma, supposed to be their best wide receiver, on what was a pick play. It was designed to get somebody open, right? It's because they're going to pick someone off, and we're playing man from what I could see on that play. McCoy backs the football down, sees that it's down there, and then body slams number 4. That's the type of a dog that you want on the outside. I also think that Ricky Gibson looks really good. They keep on calling pass interferences on him. I have no idea why. It's always perfect coverage, but just keep on doing what you're doing, Ricky. You're out there balling. And yeah, we did give up a couple of short passes, but that was within the scheme of our defense. OU did a nice job just of finding those holes. And, some of those times we were only bringing 3. So they had more time to throw the football. But I think that our secondary, again, man, answered a lot of questions in this game, and our entire front, man. So we had 3 sacks in this game. I'm going to scroll that down for y'all. We had 3 sacks in this game, and let's go through and see who all had some sacks. All right, so Tyree West, he's playing great. Okay, super, super proud of him. He's wreaking havoc. It's not just about the sacks. A lot of times, especially with the front 4, the numbers don't tell the whole tale. We were consistently dominating OU's offensive line, and we were always wreaking havoc. So very proud of him. He looks like he's our best strong side defensive end. But also, man, Joshua Josephs, let me see, did he have a sack? No. I know that, so Jackson Moy had one. Is that right? Yeah, so Jackson Moy did have one. Very proud of him. I mean, he's sitting people down. You know what I mean? He's explosive. And he's like a 4th or 5th string guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's like the 4th or 5th tackle on this team. And seeing the way that he's playing, it's just, we have a wealth of riches up front, y'all. But I know that Jason Jenkins had, so Jason Jenkins got half of a sack, and also James Pierce got half of a sack. I think that they all looked good. You could talk about Omar Norman Lott, very close several times. Bryson Easton, very close. Big E, I mean, just disruptive. Big O, all those guys, man, up front, they're in another group like it in the entire country, which is, a big part of the reason I'm able to give the whole unit an A+, because if they play like they've been playing, it's just going to echo through the 2nd and 3rd level. So super, super proud of what our defense was able to do out there last night. Now, let's also take a look at some of Oklahoma's stats. Y'all can see that they had 3 sacks as well. And yeah, I mean, kind of a, whenever you have 2 of your starters down at the tackle position, keep on talking about that, but man, it's tough. So I think that we did a really, really solid job just of, minimizing what they like to do, with their fronts and all the different looks and things like that. This team has just grown so much. But like we kind of touched on, Hawkins comes in, he throws 11 for 18, which is actually about 61.1%. And, all of his stuff came off of us having several backups in and just playing, very, very soft coverage. So take that with a grain of salt. And also, we weren't really bringing too much heat. I think that Jackson Arnold, obviously, he did struggle in this game, but he struggled because we made him struggle. So don't take nothing away from this defense at all. And, we're able to hold them total to 186 yards, which isn't, again, that's good. It's not great for our defense, but we understand why it happened, how it happened. And also, whenever we take a look at their rushing numbers, we can see that they had, 40 yards total. I think that they only net like 36, whatever. But yeah, so, about 1.2 yards per carry. That one rushing touchdown that they just handed to him, they were 2 yards short of that goal line. And really, all of the success that they had, you can look at those refs, you can look at a whole lot of different things. But, once we brought our starters in on some of those goal line situations, you could just tell they were struggling to get inches on this defense. But, yeah, again, man, I think that those stats don't tell the total tale of how dominant this defense was. Also, we didn't even talk about that safety. So, I mean, yeah, this defense was absolutely lights out. And then right here, this kid Petaway, as far as wide receiving goes for OU, he had 3 catches for 79 yards. All that came in some mop-up duty. We weren't really, we didn't really have our guys out there. We weren't really running our plays at all. But several turnovers that we do need to get cleaned up in this game. But again, we did force some. So I would expect once we get back to full health, to full strength in a couple of weeks, it's going to look totally different, y'all. And, I think that also I didn't talk about McCoy's pick, but that was beautiful. Let me just touch on that here real quick. He's playing cover 2, and he dropped down deep into his flats. And, he pretty much baited Jackson Arnold into throwing that pass. A lot of people say, oh, that was a terrible pass by Jackson Arnold. I think it was just a really good play by Jermod McCoy. So, again, man, give that credit where it's due. This defense is for real on all 3 levels. really isn't too many weaknesses, if there are any weaknesses at all, but we got to keep this thing going. And please let me know y'all's thoughts about the game last night in the comments section below. And as always, thank y'all for sticking all the way to the end. Please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and all the volunteer fans. We'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks. Peace.